Good morning, a very warm welcome to our listeners for this wonderful talk show. Once again, we have Juno who is available for a discussion about one of the gurus of India. Welcome to this lovely show, Juno. Good morning.
Good morning, Tushar.
Yes, today I was very curious to go through the works of Ramanna Maharishi. So I think shall we have a small discussion about his life, his works, his teachings? Not necessarily the same order, but yes, we will try to touch base in the best way possible. So shall we get started?
Wow, yeah, sure. Raman Maharishi,
Okay.
amazing. You chose him. Amazing. Yeah, I love him. I mean, I'm sure you must have seen so many pictures of him. One particular photograph of him, an old man with white beard, with a very uh, beautiful smile on his face. Have you?
Yeah, I would say a mystical smile
Yeah,
because
mystical, exactly.
this is a very curious thing to learn and understand that people who have attained are closer to attaining samadhi or are attaining spiritual realization. Their face has a tremendous glow.
Tremendous, yeah,
Is that
tremendous glow.
correct?
True. I mean, and each of them has a different charm. The other two who have covered. Look at Vivekananda. He looks like a stately figure in
Full of
young, full
dynamism,
of dynamism.
vibrance.
Absolutely, and
Right.
yet he also exudes a mystic aura. He looks like
Absolutely.
someone who is absolutely ready to go and change the world, right?
Right.
And
Right.
then you look at Aurobindo's figure seated in a majestic rishi-like pose.
Absolutely. In the last discussion that we were talking about the gurus, we were
Yeah.
discussing Aurobindo, and it was
Yes.
very nice to learn a lot of things from you when you talked about Aurobindo. So
Yeah, and
let's,
yeah,
yeah, please.
and now we come to Sri Raman Maharishi, and his photo has his image has a different aura, uh,
Right.
and all these three are almost universally regarded as great spiritual teachers, and in fact all the three are in the same tradition of Advait Vedanta.
Right.
Though I would say Sri Aurobindo has a philosophy of his own, which is not entirely Advaitic, but Raman Maharshi is the classic Advaitic guru. You know,
Right. He was
uh,
also claimed to be a jivanmukta. I guess it means that he is a liberated soul. That's
liberated
what.
soul. Yes, I haven't read much of his biography. What I've known about him is through works of his disciples, mostly Western disciples. I've read a couple of books by Paul Brunton, another great mystic. We'll do one show on Paul Brunton as well. I mean,
Sure, absolutely.
Paul
I'm going to make a note of that.
Yes, Paul Brunton and Arthur Osborne. These were two, very well-known Western disciples of Raman Maharishi, and I would and I've come to know of his works through mostly these two great authors. And I would also recommend to our listeners, if they can, to go through the works of Paul Brunton and Osborne on Sri Ramana. But coming back to what we were saying, yes, he's a jivanmukta. He stayed in a cave he was born in South India, Tamil Nadu, and he went quite early in his when he was I think in his teens. He went to a particular mountain called the Arunachal mountain in a place called Tiruvannamalai.
Yeah, I heard
Yeah,
that. He was very fascinated by the beauty of those
beautiful mountain,
mountains.
and he entered a cave there, and
Right.
he meditated, and very soon he got all the Advaitic non-dual realization, and he wouldn't when people used to come to him, he wouldn't go to the people because of his radiance, the kind of you know, the aura that he had around him. Very soon people around him started realizing that this was not an ordinary person, and as time went by, people started flocking to him, and there became that place became almost a pilgrimage. Tiruvannamalai, it still is, um, um, in Tamil Nadu, and he stayed in that place, Arunachal, for the rest of his life. So it's an amazing life story again. A person who doesn't go anywhere, who just hardly moves a little some way from his home, and goes to a mountain, and then till the end of his life, which is 1950. Again, can you imagine Sri Aurobindo and Raman Maharishi, both of them passed away in the same year, and both of them lived very close to each other.
That's quite interesting as a fact.
Yeah, Pondicherry and Tiruvannamalai are not very far. Both of them are in the state of Tamil Nadu, and so Raman Maharishi used to live there, and Sri Aurobindo knew about him. Raman Maharishi knew about Sri Aurobindo, yet they never met. But
That's very interesting.
what is the interesting thing is, some disciple would come to Sri Aurobindo, and he would direct him to Ramana Maharishi. He would say, "Well, you are a good you are good for Sri Ramana Maharishi's teaching. So why don't you visit him? This is not your place." And Ramana Maharishi used to do the same. To some, he would send them to Sri Aurobindo, but they didn't ever talk. They never met.
That's very interesting.
That's so interesting. And Sri Aurobindo had very high regard for Sri Ramana Maharishi. It's a strange fact that both of them lived so close and passed away in the same year. But anyway, should we go back to?
Yeah, one of the things that I wanted to have a small discussion with you about the fact that when he was on those mountains, he had a series of realizations and experiences, which are again spiritual experiences with the higher realm and a purpose. But the first major question that he asked his mind was, what is this which dies? Which is a very interesting question. And then he had a series of interesting experiences when he had a flash of death experiences, when he could actually bring it down to his mindful states and understand the experience in a better way.
Wow. Yes, exactly. And in fact, his whole the kind of question that you said that triggered the realization in his mind. In fact, his whole path is known as the path of enquiry, or path of questioning. Path of questioning. He's famous for this particular question: who am I?
Right.
And he says that question alone, if pursued with the right vigor and the right attitude, will lead you to liberation. That one question alone. If you try to classify this particular path, it will be the path of knowledge, Vedantic path. When you inquire into the nature of existence, and Raman Maharishi's path was the path of inquiry. Or he would say, if you can't do that, then surrender. Either you inquire and keep up the inquiry with the kind of intensity, and it will lead you to enlightenment, or submit to the guru or the god. That's the path of surrender. So there were two paths that he said, but he is more well known for this "who am I" classic question. So that was his basic teaching. And at the end of it, he says that when you inquire into the reality of this, your existence, you would come to realize that you are all that is. You are not the mind, body, and or the ego being the last ultimate barrier to the realization of the absolute unity of being the universal self, the one who exists all around. So again, the same Vedantic truth exemplified, and he lived that. He was, as you said, he was a jivanmukta. Whatever account I have read of him, people would say that he used to sit there. I mean, it was not like he would lecture or he would give a discourse. Mostly it was a silent kind of a thing. People would come to his hall, and there would be a small place where he would come and sit, and everyone would be silent and they would just look at him. I mean, the experiences are that all their questions would dissolve.
That's very interesting, because normally what happens, I've been to a few satsangs before, and I've seen the fact that a lot of people come and settle down, and then they start to ask questions which are either related to their personal life or their journey or how to improve themselves as a person. But when you mention the fact that when they appear for a satsang with Ramanna Maharishi, now everybody used to remain silent, and silent was slowly starting to reveal the answers to the disciples themselves. That's very interesting to learn.
Yeah, it's called the silent initiation. I mean, he would initiate you through the look. I read in Osborne's book, mostly it would be visitors or someone who didn't know him who would put questions, and then Raman Maharshi would answer. He would answer. Right. But those who knew him would just be in his presence. His presence was enough to awaken something divine within you. And it's the kind of a very unique thing.
One of the interesting quotations related to this was, of all the thoughts that rise in the mind, the thought I is the first thought. So when we talk about the I, we always relate it to ourselves, our ego, our body, our mind. But when we talk about the I in this context of this wonderful quotation, so in the spiritual aspect, everything, everywhere, and every experience that you're having is related to that I itself.
That's why I said it's the inquiry into the I that kind of summarizes his entire teaching.
Just a quick question before we move further. I would like to understand, whenever you say the fact that I, it's something that is within, right? So when I relate it to the ego, it's towards the external world. My consciousness is in a very different dimension altogether. But when I say the real I is within, it's one of the most important spiritual foundations which can help any person evolve, be it in any country or whichever location. But the main point is, we are always relating to ourselves. So when I'm looking at an object, I'm relating it to me, but actually that object is not me, right?
Yes.
So I believe this essence of spirituality is revolving around understanding the inner being that is present within ourselves. So I'm sure most of the gurus are always mentioning about the look within kind of the dimension, right?
Yes.
Makes sense?
Yes, absolutely. It's the the inquiry into I that you said has to ultimately lead to the realization of the illusory nature of your ego. That attainment of the true nature of the existence of ego, the I which we associate with our daily living. We think that we are the doer. We believe that I do these things, I have attained these are my possession, me and mine. Ultimately, almost all of them, all of them have said that you are not this, you are the self. But Sri Ramana Maharishi, his uniqueness is that if you put yourself this question and follow it relentlessly, that is sufficient to take you to the final attainment. This has not, I mean, each of them has its own style. This was Ramana's style. Who am I? Just question it with energy, with real passion, with real aspiration. It will gradually unfold to you the truth of reality. And he didn't speak, as I said, he didn't speak volumes. In fact, many times people put a question that you don't preach a lot, and he would say, "What do you think I'm doing? You think preaching is just by, talking and lecturing? I mean, preaching is through being.
Right.
I am. That's alone. That I am communicating. You may not know it, but I am communicating. And it's very strange. Ramana Maharishi. There were many great teachers who came to Ramana Maharishi, to whom he, appeared in far off places in the world.
Okay.
Yes, and they would see him, and he would call them to Tiruvannamalai. He wouldn't go there; they would come. Another great master. I don't know if you have heard of him. His name is Punjaji. Is another hugely well-known Advaitic master. He was also a disciple of Ramana Maharishi, and he was a Punjabi.
Okay.
Punjab is on the north side near Pakistan, right?
Right.
And Sri Ramana was here in south of India, just the other end. And Punjaji said that one day he was going and he saw an old man, and
Okay.
and the old man was asking him to come to Tiruvannamalai. Punjaji said, "What is this going on?" And Punjaji was also a very spiritual. He was a spiritual seeker at that point. He was very young, so he left everything and he went and he saw that when he saw Ramana Maharishi, he said, "Oh, this is the old man that I saw there." I'm talking
Wow.
about before partition. I mean, this was before India and Pakistan separated. There are different ways in which a spiritually illumined person, um, communicates with others, and how it's not very. It's you can't find out how he communicates. He knows where to go, where not to go, who to call, who not to call, and that's how he works. And that's the way Ramana Maharishi was able to do so many of the great Advaitic masters.
Right.
Many of them trace their uh, realization to Ramana Maharishi. As I said, Punjaji, Paul Brunton, Advaitic master. Many of them have been inspired by him, and the one thing that is very amazing about Ramana Maharishi is that his life has been almost entirely free of any kind of controversy about his teaching or his life. One of the few teachers who has been universally regarded as a realized soul. I can only think of Ramakrishna Paramahansa or Sri Aurobindo. Everyone else had, someone would question their method, or someone would say maybe your teaching is not in line with the Shastras, or some of them would have some kind of doubt about it. But for Sri Ramana, no one raised any question. He says, if anyone who used to be in his presence would immediately say that he is a realized soul.
His works basically is working on silence. So silence is the true updesha. Updesha means a message, I believe.
Exactly.
So it's the perfect updesha for his disciples through his silence, that he used to convey the messages across in a very subtle and a very different manner. It is actually suited for only the most advanced seekers, because I believe that if somebody
maybe
is
you're right. Maybe
right.
that's true. Maybe it's not everyone's cup of tea to just
Exactly.
to seek reality through the inquiry of who am I. As I said, if one doesn't have one hasn't reached that level of passion where this inquiry, this question becomes so critical for a person. He would find life meaningless unless he got an answer. It's only someone of that, with that kind of an attitude, who can progress very rapidly on this path of who am I, right? Because people might get fooled. Your mind might give you an answer. It says you are this, you are that, you are the self. But that answer would be learned from the Upanishads. That's not your realization. Your inquiry will stop there, and that's the danger. He says you don't have to follow any scripture or anything. You have to listen to your own being, and only when your being reveals itself to you, okay, reveals the ultimate reality, then you will know. But generally, mostly we will not be able to distinguish. We can put this inquiry to ourselves. How far do you think we can go? Not much.
It's a very difficult pathway it is.
A very, very difficult pathway.
And when you say self-inquiry, a few basic things of self-inquiry might include choiceless awareness, which is basically a way in philosophy, psychology, even spirituality, where it's a state of complete awareness of the present without any preferences, effort, or any kind of compulsion. And then we have the Turiya state, which is basically awareness of all the three states of consciousness, which is waking state, dreaming state, and dreamless state.
It's very interesting you mentioned the word choiceless awareness, because that is used for another great teacher whom we are going to cover in our next episode, Krishnamurti. Jiddu Krishnamurti, his method was choiceless awareness. In a way, Krishnamurti and Ramana Maharishi are very similar, because both of them had this path of inquiry. The method adopted was looking into your own states of mind. But Ramana Maharishi had a different answer to it. Krishnamurti had a different answer to it, and both of them are considered to be incredible saints. Krishnamurti has mostly been associated more with Zen Buddhism method, while Ramana Maharishi's was more of a Vedantic inquiry, the Upanishadic inquiry. In Upanishads, you find many Upanishads, you would find a disciple coming to the Guru, and this is the question that he would put about the nature of reality, and the Guru would send him back saying, go live there and then come and tell me what have you found. And there's a particular Upanishad called the Chandogya Upanishad, which is a dialogue between a guru and a disciple, where exactly this happens. The disciple comes with this inquiry, who am I, and the guru sends him to work or do something. Then he comes back, he says, I think this is what I am, and the guru says, perhaps this is not what you are, go back and do something else, meditate a little more. Then he comes back, then again, and slowly after this to and fro it takes place, and then finally he tells him that particular Mahavakya, thou art that, you are that, and that seems to be what Ramana Maharishi also is pointing towards.
So I have just a quick question to ask you. When you talk about gurus initiating the disciples and stuff, I remember a long time back, probably 5-7 years back, when we were sitting on our couches and we were talking about spirituality on that rainy day. We talked about the fact that a particular guru will never get to a point when he enters the disciple's mind to force a state of enlightenment, and that is something which is very interesting, because that state of enlightenment has to be triggered either by nature itself or by the conscious will of the disciple. Is that sounding right?
Yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely right. The guru never interferes, but he knows. He can see through what your state of mind is. The guru.
So when you were sorry to interrupt you. When you were talking about this interesting story of the guru asking the disciple to go back and check again, that's how that story flashed in my mind right now. That's how I.
Yeah. Yes. Absolutely. Ramana Maharishi used to say the God, the guru, and the self are one. There's no difference. He used to say the And in that respect, he is very different from Krishnamurti, because Krishnamurti did not believe in any kind of gurudom, but Raman Maharshi says yes, you need a guru, and and the real function of the guru is to awaken a kind of kind of a current in you and turn you inwards, you know. uh, when you realize the illusion of the ego, and you realize the universal self, the the illusion of this separate individual me gets dissolved, and then this universal being is felt as the sole reality, and you call it self. Now, as long as this psychosomatic instrument, which you call me, is regarded as the true being, you are still trapped. You are still in bondage, and the function of the guru is through some way, either through silence, either through his inner power, to take you closer to that inner reality. He is able to do it in, as I said, it's not fathomable how a guru does it. You can only guess, but it's only a guru who knows about it, right? That, I think, is mostly the teaching of Ramana Maharishi. He is the quintessential master of Advaita Vedanta, almost the exact description of a realized soul that you find in the Upanishads. You could replace him with an Upanishadic sage, a silent, realized soul. In fact, you would find some rare footage of Ramana Maharishi, very short clips, I think black and white to 1 minute clips you can see, and you realize, like, I mean, he looks like a very ordinary person, but at the same time you can feel the extraordinary ordinariness of this person. Some rare clips, there are visuals of him towards the end of his life, when he was quite old. Very short clips, I think black and white to 1 minute clips you can see, and you realize, like, I mean, he looks like a very ordinary person, but at the same time you can feel the extraordinary ordinariness of this person.
Okay, sounds very enlightening, Juno, once again, to hear a wonderful ideas and basic teachings. In fact, we haven't discussed a lot about Ramanna, but we can understand that we have discussed the fundamental teachings and the core essence of how he has been a major influences in the previous century. And just a quick chat about his death.
He lived the way in an Advaitic way, because his death was, if you look at his death, it's so remarkable. He was he had cancer, which was diagnosed in 1948. Another tumor came up somewhere else. Another operation was performed. And doctor wanted a complete removal of the arm, but he refused. He knew that his death was around, but look at his when his disciples told him to go through the medical procedures. Ramana Maharishi is said to have said, "Why are you attached to the body? Let it go. Where can I go? I am here." I mean, what can you think of? This person was beyond body consciousness, absolutely all the time. To him, he did not matter, and this statement, "Where can I go? I am here," towards the end of his life, tells you the amount of self-realization that this person had. I mean, people who, you can still visit Ramana ashram there in Tiruvannamalai, and the vibes there would be like his spiritual power is still vibrating in the atmosphere there, and his closest disciples kind of feel his presence. It's so amazing that this inquiry of who am I, which he recommended for his disciples, can actually be exemplified, can be seen right through to the end of his life, when he showed to his disciple that I am not this body mind complex that you are seeing in front of me. I am the self which is never going to leave, which is all present, omnipresent. All you have to do is to tune yourself to it. We miss it. We miss how easily we miss it. The same happened with Ramakrishna. Vivekananda's guru. He also had cancer, and it's the same thing happened with him. Almost the same thing. You see how what a strange what similarities you find. There also he had cancer of the throat, and people his disciples asked him to get treated, get more medical treatment, and in fact Vivekananda, I'm little digressing, but this is a little interesting. Vivekananda, on his deathbed, on Sri Ramakrishna's deathbed, Vivekananda had a thought in his mind, had a slight doubt.
Okay.
I mean, he had a slight doubt, just an inkling. By that time, Vivekananda was a totally a follower, disciple of Sri Ramakrishna. But still, on his deathbed, Vivekananda had this one thought: is he really the realized soul? And the moment that thought came into Vivekananda's head, Sri Ramakrishna looked at him and he said, "Naren, you still have a doubt. One who was Ram and one who was Krishna is this Ramakrishna, but not in your Vedantic sense." Which means he said that he was an avatar. He says that I am that same God, the same universal self. And the same with Ramana Maharishi, you can see. It's the way these people pass away. It is so amazing. It is so that shows how far they have gone into this exploration of their inner being.
In fact, I remember one of the people whom I met a few weeks back talked about an interesting point about Ramanna's demise. When he passed away, actually, at the same point in time, there was a shooting star which was seen moving across the sky, which actually was an impressed thing by some of his devotees, and they believed it to be a synchronicity. It's just an event that.
It is. I mean, it's amazing that you mentioned this, because I also remember, the mother. I told you Sri Aurobindo and the Aurobindo Ashram in Pondicherry is not very far from Tiruvannamalai. The mother was actually playing a tennis game.
Okay.
And when the tennis game was over, she said to the person who was playing with her, "Something has happened."
Okay.
She realized it, she felt it, and she says, "I think some great soul has passed away." And then just little while later, everyone realized that Sri Ramana Maharishi had passed away. So that's another. It was a synchronicity, absolutely, and many other people might have had great experiences of his passing away. So
he was also believed to be the embodiment of Lord Shiva, an avatar, a complete avatar in himself.
Yes.
Regarded by many as an outstanding, enlightened being, a charismatic person. It's great to have a discussion about Ramanna Maharishi with you, Juno, and a wonderful time. Thank you for enlightening us about everything that we discussed today.
Yeah, sure. You're welcome.
Perfect. Thank you. And viewers and listeners, we will come back with another episode very soon. Thank you very much for your time.